Thanks as always to the Hockey Shop, source for sports story, thehockeyshop.com, for presenting InGoal Radio, the podcast. Back with you, a couple of guys in the Lower Mainland right now, David Hutchison and Kevin Woodley, the co-founders of InGoal magazine, and Darren Millard in Las Vegas in Studio 33, hanging out and having some fun watching the National Hockey League and enjoying what's happening, and also tracking the newest, the latest, and the education of goaltending equipment. And let's start there, because we've got Marc-Andre Fleury on a heater. We've got goaltending numbers with the number of goaltenders playing in the National Hockey League this year into record territory. So a whole bunch to get to. Spencer Martin is our Sense Arena feature interview, as he is back up on the taxi squad and actually backing up that Demko right now. So some great content for you straight ahead. But as far as the education and the development of goaltending equipment over at the Hockey Shop, gloves is the topic of the conversation, guys. Take me through this whole bouncing back and forth between 580, 590, 600, and say you're going back and forth between manufacturers. How do you translate those numbers?
Well, rather than getting out any measuring devices, we decided to go to the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, talk to Cam, and not just, I think the vernacular is pretty common, right? CCM and now obviously True uses the same phrasing. 600 break, 590 break, 580 break. And so we decided to go to the Hockey Shop. Little cameo here from Edmonton Oilers goalie Stuart Skinner on how to sort of explain how each of those kind of feels or closes around your hand, with the caveat being how you stick your hand in a glove can affect how it closes. But just basically the simple, this is how one feels, this is how the other feels. And then Cam walked us through the similar breaks for different brands. So we all know CCM and True use 600, 590, 580. Well, that's great, but I'm in a Vaughn, I'm in a Brian's. What's the equivalent? Cam explains that to us in this week's gear segment. Now, the catch is, it takes a while. We go a full 15 minutes diving into all the different breaks. So rather than run it here in full on the podcast, we're going to give you a little tease right now and tell you afterwards where you can hear the rest. We're standing in front of the glove wall here in the Hockey Shop goalie department with Cam Matwiv to try and get a better feel, a better understanding of glove breaks. I think, frankly, we've got the definitive piece. Our reviews over the years of CCM equipment have talked a lot about the 600 break, the 590 break, and the 580 break, which, whether other brands want to use it or acknowledge it, is frankly become an industry standard for how a glove feels. Outside of maybe Brian's, everybody else has models that roughly fit within those guidelines. So we thought, for those of you who want a visual representation, a video that you can go back to over the years and not just see how those breaks are supposed to feel in your hands, but what other brand models will match the breaks that we think of when we think of that CCM 600, 590, and 580. We're going to turn it over to Cam to walk us through it. But first, let's hear from Stuart Skinner of the Edmonton Oilers, a goaltender who has used all three breaks, to talk about how he went from the same order we're going to go today: 600, 590, 580, in that order.
So nice. I used to do 600s, and then I switched to 590s because I could catch a little bit better. And then I got called up. I think it was my first time I got called up to the NHL, and Smitty was like, what the hell are you using? And I was like, oh, this is the 590. And he like kind of just showed me the 580, and I was like, oh, do you like this? He's like, if you wear it, you'll never change. So I wore it, and then I ordered it, and I've never changed since. I mean, I love the 580.
Okay, so there you go. Stuart Skinner started in the 600, went to the 590, and then after practicing with Mike Smith, quickly found himself in the 580. Let's now go to Cam to describe how those gloves feel differently and get a visual representation, try and get a feel of how it's going to fit on your hand, how it's going to close around your hand, starting, Cam, with the 600.
Little teaser for you. And I like what he said, the catch is. And he didn't even plan that. let's go to our dad, just for like the foundation of the different breaks and what parents who maybe don't realize all the intricacies and the different technology and the science that goes into these breaks, just educate them a little bit.
For sure. I think, if you're at a goalie school and you're a high level goalie and you're all getting around looking at each other's gloves, I think what Woody said is quite right. A lot of people are familiar with these different breaks. But for the parents or for the young goaltenders out there who might not be aware, different gloves close in different ways. That's what they're talking about with these breaks. And if you're buying off the shelf, if you're not ordering custom, you don't have that same choice. So, for example, with CCM, if you were to go and buy the eFlex set off the shelf, it would come stock with what's called a 600 break. It closes in the way that's described in the video and in that little segment. I don't think we got into it there, but you will if you follow up with the video this week. If you were to buy CCM's Access off the shelf, it would close with a 590 break, which is again a little bit different than the 600, and the 580 that Stuart talks about doesn't come stock with any of them. You actually have to order it custom, or certainly you could walk into a shop and ask for a 580 glove, but just in terms of if you're buying a set, how does it come stock? And then, as you'll see in that video, different brands have different gloves that match up with these breaks. And I think that's one of the great things about this video. Everybody talks in terms of these CCM true breaks, and you don't necessarily know what is it in Bauer, what is it in Brian's or Vaughn or whatever. And so I love the video because the two guys get into that and give us a comparison. But I just wanted to make it clear that different gloves do close differently, and if you're buying off the shelf, you don't necessarily have that same amount of choice. But it's great to get educated about how those work. And thanks to Woody and Cam for doing that.
I would say two things here. One is watch the video. You're right, Hutch. Make sure you go now and watch the video, watch the full video, sort of really get into it, dig into the explanation. But two, when we say off the shelf, that's your average shelf. At the hockey shop and thehockeyshop.com, as we saw there, they've got that 580 break. They stock extras of that 580 break in CCM. So you may go in the stock one in most places, maybe 600 for eFlex and 590 for Access, but Cam's got you covered with the very popular 580. He makes sure that he orders some of those. And that's the difference in shopping at thehockeyshop.com. The Hockey Shop source for sports in Surrey, is they're making sure they know how popular the 580 is. So they're making sure that beyond just custom orders and wait times, they've usually got some white gloves, as we saw in the video, in that model, ready to close for you, off the shelf, into your bag, onto the ice with that 580 break. So that's the beauty of shopping there. It's why we shop there. Remember, folks, we've talked about it the last couple of weeks. Those Warrior V1 sticks, still 30% off. Cam with the super deal on them, one of the most popular NHL sticks right now, 30% off, and he got over 400 of them. So they're going fast, but there's still plenty left. A couple different model options. All Jonathan Quick curves, but lots of different paddle lengths. Make sure you check them out. On sale now at thehockeyshop.com. 30% off the Warrior V1 sticks.
And to complete the conversation on the gloves, the breaks, because we have new goalies all the time joining the podcast who are new to the position and are coming into this great world. I've heard it broken down to, like, a first baseman's glove is the certain number. A shortstop's glove is like the way that they close. Anything you guys can add to that?
Well, I'll leave Woody to give that explanation because he's the old baseball player and loves talking about these breaks. But I also just wanted to add to that, Darren, that we're talking here in the senior gloves. If you're a young goaltender in the youth gear, the intermediate gear, the junior gear, you don't get this same choice in glove breaks. So this is when you're reaching the higher levels, you're getting into sort of Pee Wee Bantam, and maybe you're able to order senior gear that you have these break options. And maybe that would be a great follow-up video for the guys to just talk about how this compares to some of the older gloves. We would have been there for an hour, I expect, that if they'd gotten into the junior and intermediate stuff, but that'd be a fun follow-up, Kevin. But maybe you want to...
Well, that's where your stock breaks come in, Hutch, that you mentioned, right? Like, that's where in the junior sizes it is. eFlex is 600. And I think the only one that sort of becomes the common baseball vernacular, and to me, it's all about how it closes, where that break angle fits along your hand, and how your hand closes around that break angle. And so the 600 break closes sort of with the tip of, as we talk about in the video, again, watch the video, sort of the tip of your fingers and the tip of your thumb. And you can sort of think about how you'd hold a first baseman mitts. Obviously, the difference would be if you're playing first base, you're usually actually holding it like upside down from a goalie, right? But that the basket, the catch area is sort of out at the tips of your fingers, and your fingers close, sort of thumb tip to tip of your fingers. Whereas the other breaks, it's more your fingers pull into the palm of your hand, and 590 it kind of is to the base of the thumb, and then a 580 it really is down almost right into the fat part of your thumb, the meat of your thumb a little bit more. And that 580 break is so easy to recognize. Again, we go in the video, we show you examples. You recognize it in the National Hockey League because the pocket actually sort of flops over, bends over when it closes. You'll see a little hitch at the top of the glove. And a lot of the goalies love it because the way that pocket, when they go fingers up right by the ear, that pocket is sort of above the hand and almost towards your ear. Say if your hand's at your shoulder, the pocket is curved up over top by your ear. So it's one of the, it's kind of, that's a tough spot for goalies, is by the ear. Shooters know to put it there. And that 580 glove is one that a lot of guys like because the pocket sort of puts itself closer to the ear when you're holding it up by your shoulder.
That was brilliant. Well done. I can't imagine how many people like me just now were doing the whole thing with you, holding the fingers to the thumb and then the base of the thumb and then closing it and holding your with the fingers up and trying to translate that into their own situation. So thank you for that.
The one thing we never got into in the video a little bit, and I got to give credit, it was Mike Vaughn that kind of talked about this, if you remember, Hutch, when we went to Detroit, talked about how, we focus on the breaks with this one, because that's how they're sort of differentiated, how they break. And the one thing is, like, it's going to feel different for everyone, right? Like the size of your hand, how you stick your hand in the glove. Hutch, we talked about this. Finger stalls are not like so tight that you can't move. Like you can move your hand a little bit around that break. And so how it feels to you might be different. There's always a personal.
It is.
Yeah, you go to a pro palm, add a couple layers of padding, go from game ready to pro to practice. And it's going to, again, you add layers to that closure and that break, it changes how it feels around your hand. So the size of your hand, all these things factor into it. And now I can't remember where I was going.
You're talking about Mike Vaughn, that visit we had down in Michigan.
So Mike's point was that instead of focusing on the break, the other thing you focus on is where the pocket sits relative to your hand based on that break. And the 600, as I said, is sort of the pocket's almost extended out away from the edge of your hand. If you're holding your hand sort of, horizontal, that pocket will be out away from you in a 600. In a 590, it's going to be above your hand a little bit more. In a 580, even more so. And Mike made the point to us in that visit to the factory, like if you're missing pucks with one in a certain area, like you can change the break. Like if you're having pucks go off the tip of the index finger, you're not catching them clean. If you change to something like a 600 break, you're going to put the pocket in that spot where you're missing pucks. I find I notice that when we're adjusting for testing, when we get a different break in for testing, if you've been using a 590 for a long period of time, you'll instinctively put your hand where you think that pocket is to make a save, and the pocket on, say, a 600 is in a different spot, and it will hit the glove in a different area and not necessarily go straight into the pocket. But it's just a different way of thinking about it. If you're missing pucks in a certain area, you may be able to change the glove break and sort of put the pocket in a better spot for you as a goalie.
Because I was using the GP21 in 1981, and that had a different break, and that explains why I'm missing some of these pucks now, Hutch.
I don't know. If you use that glove, Darren, any glove you've got today is so much bigger than that. You should be catching all sorts of extra pucks. You should put on the old GM21, or is it GP21?
GM, I think. You're right.
Put it on again for all your practices now, and it's almost like weight training, right? You're going to put on your Axis glove later, and you'll be catching everything.
And it smells so good with that leather.
Yeah.
Listen, Mr. Vegas Golden Knights, like E-Bug practice goalie, you put that GM21 on, and the only break we'll be worrying about when you're stopping Max Pacioretty or Jack Eichel will be the one in your hand, and there'll be multiples
You
at
just
the
got to
hospital.
catch them clean,
when they do
Woody.
the
That's how
X-ray.
we did it back in the day.
They got to catch it clean, and I don't have to worry about breaking the hand because I don't really touch a lot of pucks, no matter what league I'm playing in. And our men's league back, we lost 10-0 that I didn't play, but we lost 10-0 the other day in our A-League debut. It was not pretty, so we had a team meeting after a bunch of beers, and we decided it didn't matter. We're just gonna go out and have some fun. We got
to lose. We drink the booze.
Exactly. We got a record to report, Woody, and thanks for everybody for walking through that. The goalie geek out with the gloves over at the Hockey Shop, source for sports story, thehockeyshop.com. But over a century now for the number of goaltenders that have appeared in an NHL game this year, and as we record this, it's not halfway through the season.
Yeah, the list is growing fast. As a matter of fact, like you mentioned, our featured guest this week is Spencer Martin, who's got a really remarkable story. He's bounced around a little bit. We caught him like the day after he picked up his Stanley Cup ring with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's been with the Lightning for the past couple of years. He was with Colorado before that. He's now here with the Vancouver Canucks. Literally talked to him for this interview. He was on the taxi squad. The next morning, Yaroslav Halak was placed into COVID protocols, and our friend Spencer Martin was now a member of the Vancouver Canucks, backing up Thatcher Demko, right? Which I believe he'll do today, here in about half an hour after we record this. And there's a lot of that going around the league. 101 goaltenders have appeared in a National Hockey League game. As you said, we're not even halfway through the season. Louis Domingue became number 101 last night. Tuukka Rask officially broke the record in his season debut as number 99. Then Jack LaFontaine got in a relief appearance. He became number 100. Louis Domingue's 101. Record before was 98, and that was last year. So obviously this is pandemic and COVID related. But up until that point, like the average was kind of like 89. And so the fact we're that far above it, and the fact it's this early in the season, like we haven't gotten to the point of, like guys who sign coveted college free agents, for example, that, will sign a contract on a team that's not destined for the playoffs. And part of the sort of unwritten deal is you get into a game like that usually pads the stats at an end of a year. So we could easily hit 110 this season. And so beyond the reasons, which is kind of obvious, I think injuries too, talked to a couple of the goalies that have been a part of this, that have taken advantage of it. And we're seeing an increase in injuries as much as the focus is on COVID. I think all the starting and stopping of this season, long breaks for teams and then right into games, injuries have played a role. It's been fascinating to see who's really taking advantage of it, and talk to a few of them for an article this week. Guys like Charlie Lindgren, right? Kind of in that Jordan Binnington mode, where a little older, been around the American Hockey League a long time, never even got a chance. Remember Charlie, like Charlie didn't even get into it, like with all the goalies getting into games last year with the Montreal, he didn't get into one. They never gave him that opportunity last year. So he gets it now with St. Louis. He goes 5-0-0 with a 958 in that opportunity. He's made some changes in his game in terms of how he plays the rush, a lot less flow, a little more sort of just a lot less reliance on rhythm and timing in his game right now in terms of how he manages the rush and traffic. And so a lot of great opportunities. Louis Domingue, a guy who was barely in the NHL and thought his career might be over, was quite emotional. I covered the game when he finally got into one late last season with the Calgary Flames. Well, just how hard being a taxi squad guy was last year. Kind of reinventing himself right now with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and our good friend Danny Chioda has really bought into some of the tracking mechanics as something that seems to have turned a light on in Louis' game, and is playing really well. He makes his season debut last night, stops 40 of 41. So opportunities all over the place, and a lot of guys are making the most of them. I talked to Curtis McElhenney. He laughed. He's like, man, like in the old days, guys didn't give you this shot. Veterans were not opening that door for you. He remembers in, I think it was 08, 09 or 07, 08, Kiprusoff both years played 76 games. They fly into Colorado. It's supposed to be McElhenney's start. I don't know if the second end of back-to-back, but based on his description, it must have been, because it was 3 a.m. as they're pulling into the hotel on the bus. And Mike Keenan's telling Mika Kiprusoff about Glenn Hall playing 500 plus straight games. And what do you know? Curtis McElhenney's scheduled start, not so much. Kiprusoff played great. Curtis played 6 games that year. So guys did not want to open the door even a crack before. And now we're seeing it busted wide open at a historical level for whatever reason. it's opportunity. And for a lot of guys, it's opportunity they might not otherwise get, and good for the ones that are taking advantage of it.
Remember, Mike also had Grant Fuhr when he played knocking on 80 games that year. So what I get out of that is if Mike would have coached Glenn Hall, Glenn would have pushed his streak up to like 920. That's what I get out of Mike Keenan and the way he really rode his goaltenders. But just a note of context: the last full season, there was 93 goaltenders played. This is the research done by Kevin. I don't want to take credit for it, but 93, and now we're at 101, and the average is high 80s. But Hutch, it's incredible, and it does have a lot to do with COVID. There's some injuries in there, but guys being like Halak being placed into COVID protocol, it leads to one more, and if there's one more or two more around the league, then we get our high numbers.
It opens the door and gives opportunity, just like you opened the door and gave Kevin an opportunity to talk about all 101 of those goaltenders in his answer to your question.
The mistake was yours, veteran goalie. You never should have opened the door.
Okay, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Your assignment, if you choose to accept it, most goaltenders used by one team in a single year.
It's a good question. And
I don't know the answer to it, and I don't expect you to know the answer to it, but I'm curious if we'll get that record this year as well.
I'm wondering if we already have. This is 100% top of my head. Remember the year where Dylan Ferguson played with Vegas because they ran into all kinds of injury trouble? Was that the inaugural season, maybe even?
Yes.
So what did they get to that year? 6?
Well, there was Fleury, Dansk, Subban, Legacy, and Ferguson, 5.
They got to 5. I think the LA Kings were 5 or 6 one year. Let's take a look at the New Jersey Devils right now. Jonathan Bernier, who's been a friend of the program, both on the podcast and in Pro Reads. Our thoughts with him as he has hip surgery and his season ended early. They've had a lot of COVID issues as well. They had, just the other day, they had an equipment manager dress as the backup in an e-bug role. Got the buckets off lap before the game. I think the Devils might be, like, top of my head, the New Jersey Devils might be up to 6 or 7 already this season. Like, it's been a tough go for goalies staying on the ice in New Jersey this year.
This is just a quick Google, guys. Can't claim it's off the top of my head and can't claim it's in depth, but 4 times NHL teams have had 7 goaltenders in a season. Can go right back to 89-90 with the Quebec Nordique even.
Wow. 7.
And most recently on this list, again, probably haven't done good enough research here, but the 18-19 Philadelphia Flyers used 7. Guys like Carter Hart, Brian Elliott, Kelvin Pickard, Stolarz, Talbot, Neuwirth, Lyon, and Mike McKenna.
Oh, wow. That was 2018-19, not 1918-19, right?
Right. And sorry, that's 8 they listed, even though the article said 7. So there you go.
Wow. That's we may get close to double digits.
Devils are at 6 right now.
Devils are at 6.
Devils
halfway
are at 6.
through the year.
Halfway
now, a lot of
through
these same guys will be cycled back when you do get healthy, and then if you run into more trouble, they'll get cycled back. But it's when everybody goes down at once that it becomes crazy. John Gillies, right, is another opportunity guy who is in the ECHL and in St. Louis, and then now New Jersey, who's getting some looks and being able to see it. I saw Ben Bishop doing the Dallas Stars intermission the other day, so he's not after his halted comeback attempt. He's actually just joined us in the broadcast booth, so it's nice to see him. Tallest broadcaster I've ever seen in a hockey broadcast. Should mention that. 100. Any idea? Like any guesses on what we'll get to? Does it end up being 110?
I'd say, like, honestly, at first I thought like maybe this is the peak, but like, you know, it's funny because this is what Charlie Lindgren said, and it's what Spencer Martin said to me too. Although I don't think we were recording for this interview at the time. It just feels like every week you look and somebody new is getting an opportunity, and Charlie said it felt like that for the past couple of years, and so, you know, here I am thinking, maybe it peaks now, but we've had 3 more since, you know, I wrote the article based on Rask becoming 99 and setting a new record. And it published 2 days ago, and we're already 2 above that. So at the current pace, I think 110 is very realistic.
Remember when we talked about the moving chairs in the off season and you didn't want to be left without? Well, the chairs kept moving and the goalies kept moving in and out of the chairs. And basically, if you're around and you want to play in the National Hockey League, you may end up getting your shot by hook or crook the way things are going.
For sure. Right now, I wonder too, guys, I mean, haven't spoken to anybody about this, but I wonder if there's a bit of a mentality shift here as well for management, and that, maybe you find a diamond in the rough. Maybe something comes out of the woodwork. I mean, Jordan Binnington was certainly not top of the list for St. Louis. They worked their way down to him, and then it turned into a Stanley Cup. And you just never know what you might be finding, and why not give a guy a shot?
Woody?
I mean, we're seeing examples of that, like Binnington, sort of his, that goalies take longer to develop thing. Like there's that mentality a little bit. We've seen Zach Fucale, who's made big strides with the Washington Capitals, get an opportunity this year and look really good when he did, especially his first two starts. I know he got pulled in his third one, but that was like, watch those goals. Like, that's tough, man. Like, Boston was sort of in wagon mode offensively, and he did not get much help in front of him, but I was really impressed by his performance. And there's a guy that's waited a long time to get that shot. And so, and I think there is a little bit more of a willingness to have a look to see if we can't uncover that, maybe not the next Jordan Binnington to lead us all the way to the Stanley Cup, but hey, like maybe this guy needs to be higher on our depth chart, because this is a trend that it may not reach the extremes we're seeing now with COVID, but you always need depth. Like, I remember writing 10 years ago how you had to have 3 in today's NHL that you could trust to play in the NHL. And maybe they're discovering it's a willingness to discover, like, hey, maybe this guy that we had 4 or 5 on our depth chart, we're gonna give him a shot because maybe he can be 3 for us next year.
And next time you have a struggle or your child has a dip in performance, just remember it's also happening in the National Hockey League right now. Columbus allowed 9 goals. They were the latest team to knock on the door of 10 last night.
Don't let your goalies play the Florida Panthers right now, because they are in beast mode.
Wow.
Just like video game type rush chances and numbers and plays. It's crazy. And hey, listen, one quick shout out to the general managers and those running rosters, and quite often it's coaches also running rosters at the lower levels. Because as tough as this is right now in the National Hockey League, as teams try and find goaltenders, imagine being a GM in the AHL and try to imagine being a guy in the Coast right now trying to fill out these roster spots as your guys are constantly pulled up. Vancouver's actually got off light for the most part this season up until Halak. They still are, because Spencer hasn't gotten into a game, but up until Halak's protocol, they're one of I think 6 or 7 teams in the National Hockey League that have only needed 2 goalies to sort of actually play in games. But all it took was this, and now Spencer's up, and now Mikey DiPietro just was called up and flew across the country to join them as their taxi squad goalie, because what happens if somebody else goes down? You need to have that number 3 guy there. And they're using the E-Bug in San Diego to dress for them as the backup last night. And I'm going to have to call and see if they need one when they get back to Vancouver and Abbotsford this week, because I don't think they have one set to go.
Woody, you don't have to call. We know that you've already called. You don't have to.
Actually haven't, but if their shooters need confidence, I am there to build the confidence of shooters in Abbotsford's practice. Although, have you seen practices in the American Hockey League? They go for an hour and a half sometimes. You would definitely need to locate the defibrillator before I got out there for that.
Marc-Andre Fleury's not building any confidence right now. We are talking about 2 totally different seasons for the Chicago Blackhawk netminder. I wonder what this is going to do towards the trade deadline discussions. It was already there beforehand, and now with what he's doing, it's really interesting.
Yeah, he had an 874 for the first month, and since then he's just on when I ran the numbers last was 924, but he's added another shutout to that, so he's probably up closer to 930 again. For a while, he's running 955 after the coaching change. Structure in front of him. The conversation we were having about him as he turned his season around was the Olympics, and it's too bad that that's no longer a conversation we need to have, but it does switch right away to the trade deadline. And the one thing about the Olympics is that would have been a no-brainer for him. I wonder about relocating his family, as hard as it was to do in the off-season to Chicago, whether that's something he's really willing to do or interested in doing mid-season at a trade deadline to go go chase. I guess it would depend on how good a chance you thought you had of chasing a championship. So is it Colorado? Yes. Is it Edmonton? Probably not. So it'd be really interesting to see how this all plays out.
What do you think there, Hutch?
It's a great point you brought up there, Darren, about the trade deadline coming around. I mean, 5 goals in the last 4 starts. We know there's teams, as much as there's 101 goaltenders that have played in the league, there's teams that are out there looking. Edmonton, again, still looking for a goaltender, and the market is going to heat up as the trade deadline comes. And why wouldn't you want Marc-Andre Fleury as the leading guy in that group right now? So really going to be an interesting time.
He's also chasing career numbers as well, padding those stats and piling it up. Can you do that better with a contender down the stretch? You'd have to think so. Do you think he finishes the year in Chicago, Woody?
I have no idea, because I do think this, like, he's going to have the option. I just think it's a personal decision, and probably none of us know without having talked to him. You know what I mean? I think it is more of a personal decision than anything. I would think that organization grants him the respect, especially if he's willing to come back. And given how good he's been, would grant him the respect of making that decision. So I can tell you this, though, if you want to read about how Marc-Andre Fleury has changed his game amid all this, you should head over to InGoalMag.com as a premium subscriber. We had a nice little breakdown. I had a conversation with Flower early in the year on an actual change in his game that he made since leaving Vegas, and he made it on the advice of Kevin Lankinen, adding a little overlap to his game. So we ran some numbers, we ran some video, we put together an article, we added Marc-Andre Fleury's comments about what he likes about the overlap compared to using RVH and VH, some of the situations he specifically uses it in. You'll see it'll become evident when you watch the video. So nice little breakdown, and just, again, another feather in my mind in the cap of a guy who's already headed to the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. Already has 3 Stanley Cup rings, has a Vezina Trophy, has a Williams H. Jennings. He's the reigning Vezina Trophy winner, and he's willing to adjust his game after 18 years in the NHL based on watching, observing, and discussing something different that his playing partner with all of 19 NHL wins is doing on the ice. I think there's a real lesson in there at every age about, sort of a willingness to try new things and adapt. If Marc-Andre Fleury can do it at this stage of his career based on watching a guy who's, got a long way to go to catch up to him, then certainly little Johnny, little Susie can listen to the new goalie coach who wants them to try something different.
Yeah, and, Kevin, it's a great piece, I think, that you put together there for goaltenders of all levels, again, because there's some video in there where you get to see Fleury making different decisions based on the situation. Sometimes old school stand up, sometimes RVH, sometimes overlap. So if you're a younger goaltender, you're a parent of a goaltender, and you want to learn a little bit about these different post-integration techniques, this is a really fun way to do it in the context of one of the best goaltenders in the game.
I loved watching him do the old school stand up. Darren Elliott and I would stand up on where we would watch games and just giggle.
This is the only sort of downside of him going into an overlap is I could not believe when I ran the video and ran the numbers, and thanks to ClearSight Analytics, because imagine how many games I would have had to watch to find every instance of him. But thanks to ClearSight, I can sort it by where the shot is coming from on the ice and what type of shot. So it allows you to dig down quite quickly into the types of chances that are likely to lead to those save selections. I could not believe. And he told me in the interview, he's like, yeah, sometimes I like to just stand up.
Yes.
And I'm like, but I couldn't believe how often. Like, out of 38 chances I looked at 2 years ago, because that was the comparable, because that's how many he had faced this year of those types of chances. Yeah. So I just went back to the first 38 of last season. He went straight stand-up, pads against the post like an old school of Evgeny Nabokov 10 times on 38 chances. Like, it was... He really did go old school stand-up. So he is the model when all the people yell on the internet about just stand up. Marc-Andre Fleury that proves on some shots from some angles you absolutely can.
And he will tell you why he adopted the overlap in that conversation with Kevin Woodley. And it does have something to do with that whole concept of that opening when goaltenders go down. When announcers say, they go, why doesn't the goalie just stand up? Well, there's something to that in that discussion. A shout out of the week goes to Quinnipiac and the NCAA. Hutch, you discovered something that's just incredible right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you're a big follower of the NCAA hockey, this isn't news to you, but we don't get the chance to follow it quite so much. Just happened to be scrolling last night and discovered, congratulations, Quinnipiac goaltender Yaniv Peretz with his 7th shutout of the season. He's one off the program record. Former InGoal radio guest Michael Gartig had 8 there. Peretz has played 13 games, guys, and he's got 7 shutouts already. So more than every other game. Goals against average of 0.8. And I was interested because, of course, we also know that another former guest of the show, Devin Levi, at Northeastern, is making himself as a very significant Hobey Baker candidate, having put up 8 shutouts. And I thought, well, so how does Yaniv compare to Devin? And so I did a little bit of looking around, and turns out the two of them played Bantam AAA together, both from the same hometown, Dollard des Ormeaux, just a suburb of Montreal. And so it's really a fun story. Trains in the summer also with another friend of the show, Marco Marciano. So congrats to Peretz and wishing him well for the rest of the season. We got a great Montreal goaltending battle going on in the NCAA.
We do. 2 things out of that. Peretz is really talented. And number 2, he's already got more friends than I've ever had in my life. Based on all the good friends that he trains with and the goalie partners.
Hey, hang on. I only mentioned 2 guys. You've got us. Be nice.
I'm still kind of breaking in with you guys. Sometimes I get the feeling from Woody that I'm just a colleague. I'm not really that friend caliber just yet. Just more.
Yes, we need to take that road trip to Vegas to prove it to him.
More coworker with Woody.
I miss one Christmas present, and this is what I get.
Keep an eye on that. And if your number's being retired, you're going to be a guest on InGoal Radio, the podcast. Henrik Lundqvist coming up. Pekka Rinne is coming up. 2 great ones. J.S. Shiger has his number retired by the Halifax Mooseheads. He's coming up. So just a comment, guys, before we get into our feature interview.
We have a bunch of great interviews coming up. A bunch of great interviews. Little phone tag, little scheduling tag with Henrik Lundqvist, but should have that one in the can this week ahead of his big night at Madison Square Garden. Little text tag with Pekka Rinne, but we've got that one set up hopefully here in the next week as well, ahead of his jersey retirement, and then an outdoor game for the Nashville Predators. And Hutch has got J.S. Shiger lined up for this week. So tons of great guests, tons of great content coming soon to the InGoal Radio podcast.
What are you going to talk to Jiggy about, Hutch?
Well, gear for sure.
Yeah?
Right. I mean, along with Francois Allaire, an innovator in gear, so I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about that. Happens to work in Montreal at TVA Sports with an old friend of mine, Michel Godbout, so I'm going to have to see if I can get some dirt, speaking of friends, on one of my old goaltending buddies, and looking forward to the chat. It's one we've been looking forward to for a long time. Woody and I were lucky enough to skate on the ice with him in Montreal years ago at a CCM event, and I know Woody's enjoyed chatting with him in the room for his whole career. So I'm really excited about this one.
He had good mask game too. I liked what he did on his bucket over the years. Let's slide. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you know that one of his great masks was actually painted? I just popped into my head as you say that. Well, he had a mask painted by Francois Allaire's son, FX Allaire.
Really?
Yeah. As did Lou.
I think it was with the Avs. Yeah, I think he painted one for Luongo as well. Those were actually really sharp, really good stuff.
That's very cool. So there, just a couple of little tips for you, Hutch. I know that you're always looking for help on these interviews, and there's a couple from us, just on where to go. Thanks, we're always here to lend a helping hand or a suggestion or just tell you what to do.
Without you.
I know what you do without us. You'd have a lot more peace in your life. That's what would happen. Our feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena is Spencer Martin up with the Vancouver Canucks right now. This is just a fascinating conversation, and he's so honest, and he just there's the guests that are just ready to talk, and he was ready to talk and just loves to discuss goaltending, and the stories about getting a Stanley Cup ring and a Stanley Cup were all cool, but also what he's changed in his game, what he's stuck with his game. And it's all brought to us by Sense Arena VR, Hutch.
Sure is. And if you're interested in getting into Sense Arena, if you've been hearing everything we've had to say about it and all the great pros that are using it, you want to try it now, they've got 30% off an annual license. And of course, if you use the code IGM50 at checkout, you'll get a further discount as well. guys, there's so much into Sense Arena. It's really hard to get it all into one little week chit chat here. I would just like to remind everybody that one of the things it does great, as soon as you get into it, you can try this goalie skills assessment, and you're encouraged to do it periodically as you go along. It will tell you not just what your save percentage is, but how precise were you on your angles as you were moving into shots? What was your precise reaction time? How well did you track the puck? It's amazing. Even just that one, guys. I'll do a few reps in Sense Arena. I'm thinking, I'm tracking. Your puck tracking is at 67%. It can tell how well did I watch that puck from the moment release until the moment of the save. And whether you want to use their review tools so you can turn around and see how you actually did, or if you just want to go on that stat and then have it make you sort of drill in and do a better job of tracking the puck or tracking the play, which it also gives you a score on. I think these things just give you feedback that is so precise that you can't get on the ice. It's an incredible tool. And then that goalie skills assessment feeds into them giving you some suggestions for what you should be doing in your training. So there are just myriad ways that you can augment your game through Sense Arena, augment the feedback that you're getting as a goaltender in ways that your coach just can't do on the ice. And believe me, the role of the coach is never is still just as important as it ever was. But this is just a way of augmenting what you're doing that you can't get on the ice. So encourage people to try out Sense Arena like more and more NHL pros are doing. And I'm sure it's going to make a difference in your game.
Absolutely. I did that skills assessment the other day, and I was impressed at how deep it went when it flashed up on the screen. It said, "Have you tried tennis?" I thought that was cool. I mean, it really does go all the way down the list of your various skills.
You joke about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that came along one day. And I don't mean in Sense Arena, but I do come from a sports science background, and I know that national federations go around testing young athletes so that they can say, this is what your skills are most honed in for. And, my case, it's for absolutely nothing. You should just go talk about it. But yeah, we do talent identification in athletes. Would love to see if somebody's working on something in the VR space.
Have you thought of walking a dog? Because I think that's what you'd be really good. That's what it tells me. Woody.
I was just going to say some really great drills up at Sense Arena too. We've had some new ones added. Brian DeCord's added a couple ones recently, and make sure you check out all the Sense Arena. As much as we talk about the product itself, keep an eye on their social media channels as well, because they've done a really good job of sort of showing you when those new drills are going to be up, so you can then get into the VR system and find them. Brian's done a good job of sort of walking people through those drills on the social media channels. And then you go into the system and do them yourself, and I find them really helpful as well. So, and plus, we are a week away from the LA Kings portion of their contest coming up with some great prizing from the Los Angeles Kings. So keep an eye on all those things in the next little while at Sense.
I remember Eric Comrie telling us about going out to a public skate and working on his footwork. Well, on the Sense Arena social channels, I saw a couple of goaltenders going out to a public skate and wearing their headset and doing drills on the ice with a headset in their gear. And it just, I thought, that is brilliant. You're taking an off-ice skill set, something that's designed when you don't have the ice, and you're just taking it to another level, and you can do it actually with your gear on, and you just find a corner of the ice and go. It was. I give them all the credit in the world for thinking outside the box and taking it to another level.
Wouldn't you love to just be able to track what those kids are doing 2 years from now,
yes.
5 years from now? When you see that dedication that they're willing to put themselves out there, to have people look at them thinking, that's a little bit strange what you're doing over there.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that they're going to be doing very well. I had the same thought last night. I left a rink, went for a little walk around a soccer field, and there's two kids who had to be about 9 or 10 years old running drills on a soccer pitch in the dark. There's dedication out there, and if you're a dedicated young goaltender, this is a great way to take advantage of it.
How many people watched Connor Hellebuck at a public skate, as he told us, going to public skate before his first NAHL tryout because he couldn't get any other ice? How many people thought that looked strange, and look what he's doing? Darren, the one thing I wanted to mention about taking Sense Arena on the ice and those videos they show, yes, public skate, but there's been a few where guys have been out on the ice and had the net behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they've calibrated the system to where the net is. Blows my mind how you watch them move around and they're popping in a reverse VH and right on the post. Like perfect seal, like perfect execution. And what you have to keep in mind, folks, is they can't see that post.
No.
All they see is the virtual reality post. So if you've got questions about how realistic is it, watch these guys move around the crease, bang in and out of posts that they can't even see. All they see is the virtual reality post, and that will tell you the level of precision we're talking when you're in that Sense Arena environment.
Just don't use it in the backyard around the pool. Well, I know that it's winter where you guys are from, but for everybody else that's in my neighborhood, don't use it around the pool.
Water's not frozen here either, Darren. Sadly, it was a week and a half ago.
I can tell you on the East Coast it is right now. Hope everybody's doing well up there. So our feature interview is Spencer Martin of the Vancouver Canucks. Really cool as he searches for that fourth appearance in the National Hockey League. Spencer Martin with Kevin Woodley. The feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena VR. Enjoy.
Excited to be joined on the podcast by Spencer Martin, but I got to admit, it's a little weird. He's been in Abbotsford playing with the Abbotsford Canucks for a large chunk of this season. We've had conversations out there. I was hoping to do this in person, but the way the world changes, we've now got him sort of live in person, but over Zoom because he's with the big Canucks and on the road in Carolina. With the NHL club. Everything's changed halfway through the year, taxi squad duties. But the good news is, well, not only are you on that NHL per diem right now, but you got a chance to go through Tampa Bay, and pretty darn exciting day by the looks of it yesterday. What's that like to get a Stanley Cup ring?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I mean, I would have loved to do it in person too, but it's cool to get to chat and to get this to happen. So thank you. And pretty cool timing for me getting called up to this taxi squad. Obviously, I didn't see this coming with COVID hitting and there being a taxi squad window again, kind of similar to last year. But going on this road trip, we go through Tampa and yesterday they gave me my Stanley Cup ring for being a part of the organization last year. But I wasn't sure I was going to, I didn't expect a ring at all because obviously I didn't play a game. But it just shows like how classy that organization is and how generous. And honestly, I was kind of speechless when they gave it to me. I wasn't sure what they were bringing me in for, whether it was like a little, just to catch up with them. And, I really, it left me with no words, but it was extremely cool experience. And they gave me a ring the year before too. So it was, just really cool and nice to be seeing everybody while I was in Tampa as well.
Okay, so you didn't expect it. I got to ask, now you're on the road. You still got another 3 on this road, including back-to-backs, and so you're packing and you're moving and all that. Like, what do you do with it now? Like, is it like locked away in a safe? Are the equipment guys safeguarding it? Like, how do you make sure that priceless piece of your life does not go missing between now and Vancouver?
That's it. Once I got it, I realized like I might have to wear this on the ice for the rest of the road trip. I'm not letting it out of my sight. But I asked Jenner because Jenner was with the Bulls last year, obviously, and he said he locked it up in the safe at the hotel. So I followed his lead and trusting that. But yeah, I was pretty stressed out carrying it around.
Yeah, I would be too. I just put it in there with the passport because then you can't go anywhere. There's no way you're going to leave it in the safe if the passport's in there too, right? Maybe that's some good advice.
Yeah, and they gave me a little miniature Stanley Cup as well, and just carrying it around yesterday, I felt a little bit funny being on the taxi squad carrying a Stanley Cup ring, but nevertheless, it was pretty cool, and I appreciate it more than I can even thank them.
Well, I want to get into this year, and you've transitioned to the Canucks and new voices and new coaches, and it's something you've done a couple times in your career, but maybe let's just stick with Tampa Bay. Like, what was that experience like? What do you learn as much as you want to be, maybe get into games and be a different part of it? What do you learn being a part of that run, in that capacity, practicing with the guys, I'm guessing, on a semi-regular basis, being out there, to make sure they have a target for their practices so Vasi's resting? What'd you learn?
I learned a ton. I mean, just to experience guys to experience Vasi, but not only him, but just like the leadership that they have there and the energy that they had around their team and just being professional and, just being in that environment was huge for me. Like I honestly, at times, you hate it to just be kind of, working your butt off and, not playing as many games as you love. And you feel like you want to be a gamer, you want to play a ton of games in the American League or, even in the NHL. But just to work with Franz and to get extra reps and just kind of take a step away from, when you can take away from being, having a game the next day and, kind of look at your game and, be able to work on things and have that much time before you have to play your next game. I feel like that was super beneficial. And I feel like that's really benefiting me this year.
Can you give us any examples of some of the things you're able to focus on in that environment versus, like you said, having to manage working on something new with resting and making sure you have enough energy levels for a game when you don't have to worry about the game? What kind of things were you focused on? And are there, when you talk about benefiting, what kind of things do you think are paying off now that you changed or worked on?
I think I was able to just take an more honest approach to, when I'm assessing my own game. Like and myself as an athlete as well, because, when you have a game in a couple of days, you're really just trying to build up your own confidence and make yourself feel as good as you can. But really, when I knew that I had a couple of weeks or a month or two, I was able to just get in the gym and basically, become a better athlete than I've been in the early years of my pro career. So I think that was like a most black and white change that I made. And then, just working on confidence on depth management was really, really big with me and Franz and Joel Palmer in Syracuse as well. And being able to see NHL shots, for the majority of the year, I felt like built my confidence on the first shot. And from there, you're able to play a little bit deeper. And, I feel like that really that built my confidence up for this year.
Okay, so off the ice, the physical stuff you're talking about, where's the focus? Is it mobility? Is it strength? Like, do you take anything? Again, I hate to going back to Vasi, but like he's the world's best goaltender. So having him as an example around you, I mean, I've heard stories from other guys in that locker room. We had Mike Condon on the podcast recently, and he talked about going to training camp and walking into the room after the next morning, and Vasi's basically in the splits sipping on his coffee, like. When a guy's that freakish athletic, can you try and mimic anything? Can you try and learn things? Do you pay attention to how he does things in the gym, or what's changed for you?
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, as you could imagine, he's pretty special. So it is honestly humbling and difficult to mimic him perfectly. But at the same time, like he is a super athlete. And I just looked at his movement and how easily, when we get out there in the morning, how he's right into 100% ready to go and pushing with ease. And I looked at my own game. I thought that was a weakness where I needed to get stronger and get lighter. And my mobility was there, but I wanted to get stronger and lighter. And I felt like, looking at him and trying to add that to my game or improve that in my game definitely needed to happen. I felt like it has.
What kind
maybe
of
not to his definitely not to his level, but yeah, for me, it's taking that from him has been huge.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, we've heard stories from the guys that worked with him in Ottawa back in the early days when he was coming over in the summers, and like his ability to generate power from full extension and end range of motion is just like it's off the charts, not just as a goaltender, but as an athlete. Was there anyone you worked with in the summers? Was this primarily with Tampa, or did you change some things in terms of how you were managing things in the summer? Anyone you want to shout out from an off-ice workout perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I've trained with Matt Nickel growing up, or not growing up, but the first few years of my pro career. But this, with the pandemic, I actually was kind of locked down. I either had to decide to train downtown Toronto and be isolated by myself, or to be with my family. So I decided I was going to build my own gym in my house, and I felt like, from a athletic standpoint, that really, really just kind of bred into a new lifestyle for me. To have the gym in my own house and just kind of live that life of not knowing what was going to happen next while we waited for the season to start last year, but to really try and work on myself that way.
What are the key pieces of equipment? Not that everyone can afford to have a pro athlete's gym in their house, but like, are there some basics there that you're like, hey, like if you're a goalie and you're stuck at home or you want to like start your own training, are there some things that, might be simple to acquire that people could sort of look at as a foundation for the Spencer Martin home gym?
Right. Yeah. I think well, honestly, I've had so many trainers tell me it's different for everybody, I would say, because
Okay.
I had so many people tell me, growing up, you're a goalie, so do this, you're a goalie, so do that. You don't have to do this, you don't have to do that with the players but I really just wanted to be like, hey, I want to be the most powerful athlete I can be, or as lean as I can be. So changing my nutrition and then I set myself up with a squat rack and a bike and just really, really basic stuff. And started to train myself as an athlete rather than as a goalie, because I knew I already kind of had the flexibility and mobility, but I wanted to become stronger and leaner.
What'd you do on the nutrition side? Again, we're always looking for advice for young goalies. And sometimes, like you said, you're well into your pro career, not well into, but you've had a few years in your pro career and you're still learning these things. So I think of young kids, whether they're in junior or even before, maybe they can learn this lesson from you and not have to turn pro before they do. What kind of things did you have to change on the diet side?
Honestly, I just started getting. I'm a vegetarian to start with, so I mean it's going to be difficult for a lot of guys to mimic maybe something that I've done. But I cut out a lot of carbs in my diet, and I felt like maybe playing my first couple of years around 210 pounds to now playing at 190. It just made my game easier, and it's honestly it's pretty cool to feel once you start to get out there. We had a long break in a couple of the last off seasons, or breaks at least. And to get out there and to feel like you can move around the crease easier, that's been huge. But I just took a ton of carbs out of my diet, and I started supplementing a lot of protein, which I knew I was deficient in as a vegetarian. So
I was gonna say, I mean, you're speaking to the right household here. My wife's like full vegan, and she's got my daughter who plays competitive volleyball into it, and so yeah, no, I know that world, and it's funny because do you find there's any stigmas around it? Because like hockey, sort of like, oh, like vegetarian, but like the health aspect of it, the ability to you can still achieve everything you want in terms of energy levels and power and performance. Is there any sort of negative stigmas left? Do you deal with that at all?
I would imagine so. I would imagine when a strength coach or somebody gets me, that they're not pumped to hear that I'm maybe not eating all the meats and everything. But for me, it was a huge leap of faith, just kind of go on my own and train by myself. And once I got back to Tampa, I guess we were going into the bubble, and I was in kind of in better shape. And then even more so the next year at camp, it was a big confidence boost to myself to be able to kind of do it on my own. Partially, there's obviously a ton of people still helping out, but to be able to just to know that you can get it done yourself was huge for me. But I started supplementing a lot of protein.
Yeah, inflammation. Like, I mean, I know we've talked to other athletes on the podcast, and I've had some conversations with other guys that have made that switch too. Just especially in a position where how your hips feel, how your legs feel the day after a game. A lot of people that have made the switch seem to like what it does from a recovery and inflammation standpoint.
Yeah, well, I've actually been a vegetarian my whole life, but
okay, there you go. Okay,
but I had a heavy carb diet beforehand to kind of make up for energy wise. But I've had an ACL injury and I've had 2 meniscus tears on both knees. So just to take weight off, take load off the joints has been incredible for from staying away from swelling and staying away from pain during practice. It's made a big difference.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to turn this into an episode of the Food Network. I apologize for that. Let's go back to depth. Let's go back to the goalie stuff. Depth management. You talked about altering that in Tampa Bay. So when I hear depth management, like that can mean so many different things to so many different goalies, depending on where they're coming from. What did it mean for you? What adjusted? Like was it sort of where you were on the ice, or was it how you got there in terms of maybe taking out backwards flow? What was the change for you?
Yeah, I think what I was referring to more as a rush depth management. Okay. I've had a ton of I've had a tendency earlier in my career to fly out a little bit much, and get that foot or foot and a half of white paint behind me on on certain rush plays. And I feel like, building confidence in my straight on shot ability has allowed me to get closer. I still like backflow. I still like to feel like I'm not stuck or stationary. But just to take a little bit of off that has made it easier to make my next play for sure.
Okay, so like give me like how much less have you taken? And when you say backwards flow, can it be just one little drift? Like it's such a fine line, right? Because you don't want to feel stuck, and a lot of guys really, if they're stationary, do feel that way. And yet, anytime we add movement, moving parts can be tough to manage against rush chances. How have you found that balance? Because it's one that a lot of guys struggle with.
Yeah, I mean, my goal on most rushes, especially if they're coming down outside the dots, is to get into my in zone depth by the time that they're anywhere where they can shoot. So instead of being maybe 2 feet or 1.5 feet outside with the white paint behind me, I'm starting with maybe 6 inches and trying to get to balls in my feet on the red of the crease. So that's just made all the pushes a lot easier and made recoveries as well.
Nice. So then you come here, and I know, like, especially off the rush, like working with Curtis Sanford and Ian Clark, the track down mechanics, as say a rush gets down further into the zone, that's something that is a big change for a lot of goaltenders. What else has that been a transition for you? That are you getting comfortable with that? Are you trying to implement that? Or there's always that with new coaches. What do I take? What do I not take? New tools in the toolbox, but not everyone works for every goalie. How's that process been here?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing I've taken from Clarkie and Sandman this year and with Vancouver has been, I kind of took that depth management, but then it was still kind of difficult to move. I have a lower stance when I like to make saves from. So they've given me a 3-stance system that's been a massive piece of my game. Being in a high stance when there's less danger, a medium stance, and then a lower stance, and changing up my flexion has been something kind of foreign to me coming into the year. So I wasn't sure how I loved it at first, but now that's been the biggest part this year. So like off a rush play, you'll probably see me a little bit taller, and then reading the play when there is a shot, getting down in my lower stances.
So were you pretty much like, as soon as that plays over the blue line before, you were sort of into your save stance?
Yeah, my goal in the past was to kind of stay pretty level no matter what. So whether it was a rush or an in-zone passing play or the actual shot, I would try to be pretty much the same level. But this year, I've really unlocked some mobility with being able to be taller and more mobile when there's a less threat of a shot, and then just using that to get to better spots positionally. It's been unreal this year.
How much energy are you saving, do you think? As soon as you go tall and narrow, like we think of, a save stance or your low stance, I guess, in their system, you're really, there's a lot of flexion. There's a lot of sort of muscle tension. I know Clarkie believes tension is the enemy of goaltending, but it's a lot of work to hold it. It's a lot of work to move out of it. When you can go upright, tall, and narrow, it's probably a lot of kids that are listening to this for advice right now. When that plays out on the perimeter and you can get tall and narrow, do you feel like that saves energy as the game goes on as well?
Oh, for sure. I mean, and just in those plays that, you usually bog you down at, in zone, especially on the power play, when they're working up top, I'm working in my medium stance, taller stance, depending on the situation. And it's just making everything easier to, all my spots easier to get to. And that's allowing me to kind of, have a clear brain for reading the game. And, when you're so low and intense and you're kind of working really hard, I find it extremely difficult to read the game. So, working in my high stance has really unlocked that for me.
Now, is that tough adjustment, Spencer? Like if you were playing the other way for so long, even though you'd made other changes to your game, like that's not, it almost sounds simple. Oh, 3-stance system, but like where and when on the ice and what situations you use each one, that's not a snap your fingers adjustment after this many years as a pro. What's that process been like for you? Because, especially you didn't get to play early this season, but since you have, you've really had a ton of success. I think 5-0-3 or 5-0-2-1, however they want to list it, 921 save. Like, things have gone really well when you got back in the games. How have you, what's it been like to find that comfort level? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of touched on it there. I hate to say it, but when you move to a new organization, it would be nice to work with the goalie coaches for a few months with low amount of game action, so that it really made it easier to adjust. I mean, obviously, I would have played all the games from the beginning of the year if I had it my way, but that time that I took to commit to it, really, I needed that time because right at first I was using it, but it's the commitment that really makes it work. And, being able to commit and play with confidence in, switching those stances and switching into a save stance right before a shot definitely took some time to get used to. But like you said, I think I played like one game in the first month and a half or 2 months of the year. So that gave me a lot of time just to buckle down with Sandman and Abbotsford and to work on it just tirelessly. And now it feels completely natural. But no, it was not a snap your fingers adjustment.
What that transition? Because when a lot of people think of it from sort of we can kind of, I think most goalies listening to you talk can visualize what tall and narrow upright stance looks like, and sort of medium and then down into your save execution. Do you have to be careful as a goalie that transition is somewhat of a smooth process? Can it be dangerous a little bit to sort of go sort of have a hitch almost, like one to the other, where it's dramatic and maybe a tell? Like if shooters are like, do you worry about that at all, or does the transition from one to the other become almost seamless for you? And I just asked a really pointed question.
The key is just not to go. I would say I avoid going from tall to just right into the low. I mean, I'm trying to get to tall when there's really, really no threat, or a very low threat of a shot that's going to be challenging. And use that medium stance because in the medium stance you have kind of an average amount of flexion. If people listening can imagine, and you can move and you can make saves. It's like the best stance for me. So I'm working with that stance the most, and from there to a save stance wouldn't be that immediate of a change. But honestly, watching Mikey and Artur's, but especially Mikey, because he's been in the system a little bit longer, and watching his adjustments and how he uses this exact system has really helped me because he's pretty, he switches pretty quick, like bang in, right before the shot. So at first I didn't like that. I was like, oh, for me that doesn't feel right. Like I want to be kind of more smooth. But, just like I said, having a little bit of time off and being able to try things, I've really started to use it, and I've really enjoyed it.
Have you had to keep an open mind? Like, as you've changed, you started your career with the Colorado Avalanche organization. You had Francois Allaire, the legend, shout out, should be in the Hall of Fame, past guest on the InGoal Radio podcast. You go to Tampa Bay, you've got Franz Jean, you've now got Ian Clark and Curtis Sanford. You've had all these different voices. How do you approach that as a young pro? Do you have to try and stay open to everything? Can there be a danger at times of trying to be too open and going away from what your foundation you think it needs to be, or you just kind of sort of constantly have to be open to adjusting your foundation?
Well, I think I've been lucky enough to where the people that I've worked with have given me stuff to given me knowledge, but not told me that, you got to be looking like this, tomorrow in the game. Like Clarky and Salmon, they're like, hey, let's be open-minded and let's trust the process in practice. And then once we're in the game, like just play your game, and then we'll go from there. And that's just made me feel extremely confident when I'm in there, that I don't have to, play any certain way that I don't feel like playing. But, I'm seventh year pro here. I've got 3 games in the NHL, so I'd be pretty stubborn to think that, I need to learn and add things as we go here so that I can, hopefully get back to get to a level that I can play in the NHL.
And I know you work with Andy Chiodo now with the Pittsburgh Penguins in the summer. He has been a steady influence for you for the past number of years. Blending what you get from different voices in season to what you're doing in the off season, what's that process like, and what's your focus like when I guess it's shifted over the years when you go back to sort of training in the summers?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just all about, if you look at the NHL, there's usually even within one team, there's going to be 2 goalies that are playing pretty different from each other, and often in cases. So just picking what works best with my body and what works best with my game and sprinkling it in has been. It is that that fine line, right? Of like trying not to force yourself to do certain things and find what works with you easily. But at the same time, with those, like this year with the stances, I kind of just pounded it in there when I wasn't sure at first and had time to do that. And it ended up working out. So I'm really just trying to stay open-minded and realizing that, being humble enough to know that I can add things to get better here.
Let's have a little fun. How'd you fall in love with the position? How did Spencer Martin become a goalie? Let's go way back.
I you know what? I don't know. I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I was watching Curtis Joseph with the Maple Leafs, and for some reason, I think I was one of the younger guys on my block, so they stuck me in that in road hockey, and there's my career decision right there.
Well, it's usually one of two things. To be honest, like we're 153 episodes in, and like I don't want to say to a man or to a woman, there are different versions of the stories, but it's usually the gear or an older brother that to play with them, or an older sibling, you got to go in net. So I guess in your case, it wasn't necessarily a sibling. It was just the road hockey game forced you in.
Yeah, I think the road hockey game had me go in there, and then from there, I was just putting the mini stick net in front of the TV and mimicking the goalie instead of the player. So my parents were pretty cool in letting me get right into it.
Now, which you mentioned Curtis Joseph. Was he the guy growing up? Like, did you have, and then you're in there mimicking. At what stage do you go to the point from just being a kid, having fun, loving the game, to starting to pay a little closer attention to maybe how Curtis did it or how somebody else did it and start to mimic them even on the ice? Do you remember those days in that transition?
Yeah, I had a great goalie coach, Ron Mays, when I was, just starting, and he still works in Burlington, Ontario, and he's so he kind of got me going and technically, and I think I just loved it. I don't know if I can't really remember when I started to say, okay, this is when I need to start focusing on, really trying to be a certain type of goalie, but I was super competitive and just love playing goalie right away.
Okay, so you end up in the OHL. What was like? Ron was your first sort of goalie coach. So at a young age, you had a goalie coach. Like nowadays, it's and you're kind of in that transition area from an age perspective, where in Canada we would have seen a lot of guys have a goalie coach from a really young age. When did you first start working with Ron, and how did things change as you sort of graduate up into major junior and start thinking about your career that way?
Yeah, I started working with Ron Mays. Just as soon as I started playing goalie, which was really cool, and just kind of got me going. You build your little technical game as a kid, and then I worked with Piero Greco, who's with the Islanders right now, and he kind of started working with me as I got closer to getting to my junior draft. And I was one of those guys who was really lucky enough that my parents put me in everything, every resource they gave to me to become a good goalie young. But it is interesting to me to think about like the kids, like when I wasn't working on reverses, back in the day. So it's kind of nerve wracking to think about some of the, the new edge work that's coming in with the younger guys, and thinking about how I started doing that maybe when I was 17 or 16 instead of real young.
Well, Curtis Joseph is a guy, I remember having this conversation late in his career. I think it was all the way to Arizona before he learned the concept of proper leg recovery. And if I'm not mistaken, it might have even been Piero Greco in the off seasons where he learned it, watching the kids get up off the proper leg to recover, and he was still getting up off his dominant leg every time. So there's always a chance to learn. Even, there's a guy who, in my mind, probably should be in the Hall of Fame, and he'd already had that career to that point. Right.
Yeah. No, that probably makes sense. When I was younger, I pretty much let it fly as far as technique. I feel like I'm starting to bring it in every year, even until now. But watching him, and there was no reverses back then, but there was a lot of battle, and that was probably where it started.
Is that like, if you had like, if you were starting again, would you say, hey, I want to just go out there and go on instinct early? Would you want technical coaching from a young age? And this is kind of a tough question to ask you as you're in the middle of your pro career. You're too young to have kids yet to have to worry about this, but we talk a lot about development of goaltending in Canada, and maybe can there be too much too soon from a technical standpoint? Do you need to learn to just skate and react on instinct? Where I'm putting you on the spot here with a tough question, but where would you come out on that one, having sort of maybe gone through both sides of it early?
Yeah, I feel like I honestly would lean towards, building instincts and just being good on skates. Like my parents put me in power skating with the players. I was the only goalie out there in full goalie gear to try and, just work on edges and just be on the ice as much as I possibly could. So that was pretty cool. And I felt like that was a huge part of it for me. But yeah, I think the technical side you can get down pretty quick, but the instincts and just, being a goalie is what I would lean to first as a young guy.
Okay, junior experience, under 18s, gold medal with Canada. Get a shutout at the top prospects game. What are your memories? What are your biggest memories of junior hockey? Is it some of those achievements, Team Canada, or is it just more overall the experience of it?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, especially when you're around your draft year, those cool experiences that you get to have. And I was lucky enough to get drafted in my hometown team in Mississauga and living in Oakville. So, to get to experience all that right close to home and with my family watching, I was pretty blessed. So I look back at those days as the glory days, but now we're in pro. So
we have more glory days to come, my friend. I got to ask one last one here because I've kept you longer than I should, which is kind of a bad habit of mine. But you mentioned doing your power skating in gear, and I know gear wasn't maybe what attracted you to the position, but I happened to look up some old photos, and you've sort of always had really high style marks. Like you've had some sick setups over the years. I was looking at the Mississauga one, the Reebok, I think it was an XLT or might have even been a P4 with the tan with the blue stripe on the sort of retro tan. Got some sick Bauer gear now and with the Lightning last year. Style matter?
Oh, hey, I don't like how you said the gear didn't attract me to the position because that's
so
a
it was
huge
part of it
for me. I love the style. I love the style.
Okay.
I've had oh man, I don't even want to say this, but I've had some goalie coaches pull me back a little bit. Not even goalie coaches, teammates, older guys, been like, you sometimes you relax. But I've absolutely loved to play around with my gear and then have some flashy stuff. And maybe that's what's missing right now. Maybe I need to get a little more color in my stuff. But
not on the outer edges, not in Vancouver.
Yeah, well, the white bases have been where I've been. What I've been looking at for the last few years, but maybe in some more color to come soon, hopefully.
Well, I've seen you like you had a set in Colorado that I think was a set of Reebok XLTs, but it had like logos on it, and I know they weren't doing that back then. So was that like a pad skins type thing you had on there? Like it was like a retro Colorado logo, and it was sick.
Yeah. Shout out to Tom Frater with Mississauga Steelheads because he even to this day, like he'll help me get all those. We had pad skins going. He would spend hours at a time, make it even for like a special jersey night, like with pad skins and anything to get like a custom look, whether it's stitching or wraps. So that he was a huge influence for making me go out of my comfort zone for style. So.
You had sock graphics too at one point with again on a pad that didn't have that option back then. So clearly some pad skins worked there in Mississauga by him. So kudos, I love it. Other style point though right now, and man, does it pop? Who's talking about the mask? Like, do you get chirped? Is anybody ringing one off the bucket because it's that chrome just pops so much out there?
Yeah,
I gotta say, I saw it and I was like, man, I want to try that, but I'm like. As a crappy beer leaguer, it just feels to me like that's putting a target on my head.
I think it is. I think it does attract a few extra shots. And when I get hit in the head, guys aren't sorry. They're just saying like, hey, listen, it's like it's like some type of bait or a reflective magnet to get hit in the head. But I really liked what Dave has been able to do with some of the masks and to make them extra flashy. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, and now it matches the bling on the ring.
There you go.
So
that's not what I was going for, but I love it.
I mean, you got to match. Hey, just anybody says, like, if anybody chirps you about how bright that chrome helmet is, and by the way, I'm a massive fan of it, and the feedback we got when we put it on Instagram was just off the chart, so a lot of people like it. But just, hey, it goes with the rings. Got to have the bling. I like it.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. I'm I'm catching up in Taxi Squad Stanley Cup rings that I am with games played in the NHL, so I better not say that, but I love being a little bit flashy and enjoying the position.
Well, we love that there's some style there to boot, and I know the other parts are going to come as well. Spencer, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us and catch up with us today. We've really enjoyed it, and I know our audience is going to as well.
Thanks for having me. Anytime. Thank you.
Best road trip ever. Taxi squad called up to the NHL, and during the course of the journey, you pick up your Stanley Cup ring and the miniature Stanley Cup that every Stanley Cup winner gets. It's hard to top that. Now, get a start, get an appearance, yeah, but that's a heck of a journey, and thanks to Spencer for sharing some of that. Just a cool dude.
Yeah, and hey, and some stuff in there. Obviously, you heard it talking about the 3-stance system, which is something you hear a lot with the Vancouver Canucks and Ian Clark and his goaltenders here about sort of, too low, too wide, too soon. A lot of guys sort of get into save execution stance as soon as that puck is across the blue line. You waste a ton of energy, you limit your movement, and so they want to make sure you're in that high, narrow, upright stance. And I thought Spencer did a really good job of sort of walking us through how he's adapted and what it means to him, and some lessons there, I think, because I do see it at all levels where guys are just, again, in some cases it limits your mobility. There are goalies who are good enough to move out of that save execution stance now, like they can fly around despite being, what used to be considered low and wide and locked in. But man, are you wasting a whole bunch of energy doing so. And so there's spots on the ice where you just don't need to be in that spot, and being a little higher, a little taller allows you to see the game better too, because you're looking down over traffic a lot more than trying to find pucks around it. So good lesson there from Spencer that I think it definitely applies to all the goalies who have had success here in Vancouver under Ian Clark, and one that I think a lot of goalies at different levels can apply as well.
I like his comments about backward flow, that he continues to hold on to that a little bit.
Yeah, and it's funny because Charlie Lindgren, same thing. Like, he's changed. And we talked about him earlier as one of those 101 goalies and .958 save percentage in 5 games with the Blues, and what's changed since Montreal, where he played 24 NHL games over 6 seasons. A big part of it is changing how he manages the rush, and less flow, but not no flow. And so you can still have a little bit of flow in your game. It's just, I think I don't say we're past it, because some guys still do it. Tuukka Rask plays with as much as anyone. But it's really hard when you're a couple feet out and moving that much every time the puck's coming into it. So guys are just getting a little more conservative with it. But it doesn't mean you're stuck. It doesn't mean you're stationary completely.
The 3-stance idea, Hutch, does that throw a different look at the shooters at all? Or do you think it plays any role in what the offense is seeing as they control the puck in and around the zone? Or am I overthinking that?
You're overthinking it, because not many shooters are smart enough to look up at the net.
You're right. Shooters are dumb.
I actually saw an absolutely world-class goal in the Western Hockey League last night, and I forget the name of the scorer from Prince George, who 100% sold pass all day long, staring at the player that he was skating towards, and then just slid one to the backside on the ice. The skill of shooters, as much as I joke that they're not looking at the net, this one wasn't, but he absolutely knew what he was doing. Does 3-stance give the shooters a different look? Yeah, I mean, of course it does, but I think, as Woody said, the greatest benefit is to the goaltenders. So yeah, it's a fascinating interview.
What you have to be careful of, and we talked about it with Spencer there, is getting caught in your transitions and becoming too sort of either predictable or obvious, or sort of, I'm trying to think of the word, like just sort of, you can, in that last into save stance, if you widen out, we see this with guys that don't even use a 3-stance system. I've seen it in the NHL where as they sort of prepare for a shot, they just dig in and get wider.
Yeah.
And sort of lower themselves and lock in a little bit. Like, if you're looking for that as a shooter, if you're looking for that boom, as soon as there are a lot of guys where when they get into it can become quite predictable. And if you're a shooter and you've got a goalie coach that is teaching you to look for that, that's when you move it, either because you've got time to make a play yourself or because there's a passing option. Because once you dig in like that, again,
Guys move as well as they've ever moved, even from low wide stances, but there's a limit, right? And your mobility isn't the same once you sort of dig into those edges.
And goalie coaches are the ones doing the pre-scouts on the other team's goalie, so they're looking if you're susceptible to that. They know that. This has been a lot of fun. Hutch, you're hanging out in the Lower Mainland, off the island for a little bit.
Yeah, indeterminate time. Chasing the kid around as I always do, but it's always nice to be around the corner from Woody.
You guys going to get together at all, or just going to stand on opposite sides of the street and wave to each other?
We went to a hockey game together a couple nights ago, so yeah, we do our best. We do our best to hang out and talk goaltending whenever we can.
Nice to be a friend instead of a colleague of Woody's.
And actually hanging out with another guy who's done some work with InGoal is our old friend Greg Ballack as well. So
cool.
It's good to get together.
Nice.
Still haven't invited him over for a hot tub yet, though.
Yeah, I don't want to see this body in the hot tub. I'd have to wear the old 1832 bathing suit that covers everything before I'm hopping
the 18th, the onesie.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's Hutch in his wetsuit, jumping in. Great to catch up with you guys, as always. That was a big 45 minutes off the top, and a lot in there, geeking out on goalie numbers, as well as want to remind everybody, Pekka Renning, Henrik Lundqvist, J.S. Jaguar, all coming up on InGoal Radio, the podcast.